Welcome back to Autism Live. We are very excited because joining us via Skype right now is Dr. Jane Thierfeld Brown. Hopefully I've said your name right because I'm known for slaughtering names. We're very excited to have you with us because I know your schedule is very busy. And for those of you who are just tuning in, Dr. Brown is an assistant clinical professor at Yale Child Study, Yale Medical School, and we could take up the whole segment with me listing off all of her credits for the things that she has done. She is amazing, and she's with us today to talk to us about Autism College Spectrum. Yes?
Yes.
And so let's start with what is that and how did it come to be, and why do our viewers need to know about this right now?
Well, thank you, Shannon. First, thank you so much for having me on today. And I so appreciate the work that you do, and it's so important. So thank you for all that you do. I've been a disability service provider for close to 40 years in higher ed. I've always, my entire career, worked in colleges with students with disabilities. And for the past 20 years, I've specialized in working with college students with autism. About 20 years ago, two colleagues and I started a group called College Autism Spectrum. My colleagues, Lori Wolf, the Director of Disability Services at Boston University, and Lisa King, who is an access specialist at St. Catherine's University in Minneapolis. The three of us have been working with students with autism for many years. And we started a group mainly to help people learn more about autism, to help the colleges understand students with autism. We train faculty, we train residence life staff. We work with other departments at colleges, health services, police departments, to help them understand issues of neurodiversity and people with autism. We also work with parents and lots of high schools, trying to get people more prepared for that next step, because we find that to be a really big issue. Many of our students are very academically capable, but they're just not ready for all of the independence that college requires. And sometimes they need a program to help support them, but they also need some of that independence. And what we've learned over time in all our research and writing is we really need to start earlier. And that's luckily I'm able to do that in the state of Pennsylvania, where we're working with students from 9th grade on, trying to get them better prepared for college and for employment, and hopefully improve the outcomes for our young people on the spectrum.
Well, and in just a second, I want to talk about some advice for parents about the kinds of things that you do and that you find are really important. But before we do that, I wanted to take just a second to talk about, first of all, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more, and where can they go for more information?
Oh, sure. Well, they can always go to our website, which is collegeautismspectrum.com. And on that, we give a lot of information, and we give we have a list of all the programs in the country. I haven't updated yet for this fall because we have about 8 to 10 new programs in the country just starting, and I'm waiting till those get up and running to put all those contacts on the website. But right now there's about 50 programs in the country, and we list all of those on the website. We usually keep an up-to-date training list there so that if one of us is in your area of the country, that we can be in touch. But also there's contact numbers on this site, and we work with individuals all the time, helping them find the right college for their sons and daughters or for their students. We talk to a lot of guidance counselors and high school professionals that are helping students find the appropriate services that they might need in college.
But we have to say, we want people to know that your services are very in demand and you're super busy, and that when people contact you, they need to be aware of the fact that they're going to need to be a little bit patient. It's not the kind of thing where they're going to call you and you're going to be able to get on the phone with them 5 seconds later.
One of the things we do is to keep the cost down, because I'm also a parent. I have a 25-year-old who is very severely autistic, and so I know that I feel very strongly that I don't like being financially abused just because I have a kid on the spectrum. So
Amen to that.
amen.
Amen to that.
And I feel very strongly that we need to keep our costs reasonable. So we don't have an office staff. We all just reply to emails as we can and triage as we can. And often, especially this time of year, with so many students starting college and so many college programs just starting, this is a very busy time. So I always apologize en masse to families and to professionals that we try to get to everybody as quickly as we can. But often, if we're traveling or if we're with students in our offices, we have to wait to get back to people. So if it's taking a while, please email. Email's the quickest way. And the email, there's an email on our site. There's a link, and you can always reach me through Yale, also just jane.brown@yale.edu, or jane@collegeautismspectrum.com.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah,
But you also have a book. Let's talk a little bit about the book.
Our book, well, we've written several. The first we wrote a number of years ago. It was published in 2009, and it's called Students with Asperger's, A Guide for College Professionals. That was really meant, we wrote department by department at the colleges and hoping to help people understand what at the time was thought of as a new population of students that people in disability services needed to be addressing and supporting. About 3 years later, our parent book was published, and it's called A Parent's Guide to College for Students on the Autism Spectrum. And it really takes you right from high school and accommodations in high school right through applying and transitioning to college.
And we were just seeing that the one for the college professionals has just been translated into Japanese, correct?
Yes.
That's very
the
exciting.
population in Japan, we had a number of professors from Japan that worked with us over the years because for years the students in Japan with autism weren't allowed to go to university. They were just expected that they were disabled and they couldn't continue any education. And suddenly they realized that was very wrong. And so several professors really tried to integrate students on the spectrum into the colleges and universities. And now they have many students with autism because their prevalence rate is higher than ours is in the US. And now they have many students on the spectrum in college.
But you know that here in the United States that there's a parent, well, and we're all over the world right now live,
Yes.
but there's a parent watching in the United States right now who is saying, really, our kids can go to college? This is sometimes a shocking thing here in the United States. But they do all the time go to college, and there are supports there, and with your help, using those supports is often easier. So really a wonderful thing. And your books, we should say, they're available on all major booksellers, Amazon and such.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so they're published by AAPC, the Autism Asperger's Publishing Company, and yes, they're available all places. And I think that the important thing is just as people who are neurotypical, some people go to college and sometimes they don't for one reason or another. It's the same for students on the spectrum. I think the important part is for families to realize that the laws are very different that guide high school and college.
Yes.
And that because of that, there is no special education in college. There are services, but you have to be what's called otherwise qualified. In other words, you have to get into the university first. If it's an open access community college, of course you can go, but you still have to be able to get through the classes. The courses are not modified, the grades are not modified. That's special education. But there are supports offered that sometimes you need a note taker or extra time for your exams. Sometimes you need to access services for executive functioning, but not every college has all of those services. They're not federally mandated. And as opposed to high school, where they get a budget in order to meet the needs of those students who require accommodation, colleges do not. Colleges do not have money behind a mandate, where in high school it is a federal law in that students that have a disability be given special education. In college, it's civil rights statute of equal access. So what we do in college is level the playing field for students, and that's all we can do. So we can't guarantee success, and we can't modify things, so that students who are going to college should be very realistic and prepared if they're going to make that move onto college. But yes, there's many students who are in college. There's also, for a different population, there are programs for students with intellectual disabilities, and the thinkcollege.net website does a fabulous job of that, of working with students with ID. And they have resources all over the country. Our site really works with students who are going to degree granting institutions and are applying to college and need services.
Absolutely. And we don't have a whole lot of time left, but because we could talk to you for hours and have information for parents, right?
Happy.
But we've got another interview coming up. So I just wanted, there was some advice that you and I talked about on the phone the other day that you had said it's not popular, that parents don't especially love this advice, but that it's critical if you want to get your child ready for college. There's something critical to start doing now. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Well, one of the things you really need to do is pare down the big time accommodations as soon as your student is ready. There's things that are available in high school that are not going to be available at college. Things like study guides. That's not going to happen in college. So you want to make sure that while they've got all those good supports, your student is learning how to make their own study guides. They're not going to be given reduced homework. So if your student's reducing homework and doing it all at school, we really need them to learn how to manage their time. And if they need supports to do that, then we need to get them those supports, and they need to learn those strategies now. One-to-one aides after high school, none of that is paid for or approved at college. There's the rare college that will allow a one-to-one aide, a couple of community colleges in California, but the overwhelming majority of schools do not allow one-to-one aides in the classroom unless there's a serious health risk. So that's always an issue and often debated for families. There's a few other things, but I know in the interest of time, I think the other big thing that we talked about, Shannon, is many people are told that if their students go onto a 504 plan, that will continue with them to college. And that's a myth. I have no idea where it started. It's an unfortunate same number. We have the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act that we follow that is now in place in disability services in addition to the ADA. But 504 plans do not come to college with the student. Post-secondary ed does not look at 504 plans and follow them. That's not what we do. We look at documentation that the student has, and we have to arrange accommodations based on that documentation and what classes the student's taking. So again, that's a very brief snapshot of some of the things that students really need to think about and make sure and transition before they leave high school, so they can be ready for the post-secondary environment.
Right. Well, as I said, we have to have you back on the show because you are a wealth of information, and it's all very exciting for people who, I have a son that my expectation is that he will go to college. And, I know that even as much as 6 months ago, I was like, I'm sure there's things that I need to be doing to get ready. So I appreciate this information. It isn't for everyone. And for those of you who are watching and going, this is not my kid, I love that you gave us a resource for other people, because this isn't a one-size-fits-all community, unfortunately, ever.
And even my own son is not going to college, so it's not for my kid either. But for the students who need it, yes, there are resources. And Shannon, thank you so much for having me, and it would be my pleasure to come back and to give more information.
We will look forward to it. Tell them your website again, though, one more time before we go.
collegeautismspectrum.com.
Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time.
you.
I know how busy you are right now, and we'll make a time for you to come back on the show and share more information.
Thank you so much.